Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Syngenta Canada, Alberta Wheat Commission, and C&M Seeds.
Jay Strobey with RealAgriculture.com, and I'm here talking with Dr. Neil Harker about wild oats, resistant wild oats specifically. What the heck can producers do about them? How do you identify them? What options are there?
Well, you can they're pretty easy to identify because you put on a herbicide that normally works and they don't work. And so you generally see them in patches. If you see them in real straight lines, then you suspect a sprayer error. But if you just see them in little patches out there, you pretty well can often assume now, at least in Alberta, that they're going to be resistant.
So what options do producers have?
For controlling wild oats that are resistant, or for preventing wild oats getting resistance?
Well, let's start with preventing first.
Yeah, so for preventing, diversity is the key. So diverse crop rotations, which especially if you can get some winter annual crops and some perennial forage crops in there, that really disadvantages wild oats. For herbicide things, you need to mix it up. So if you're applying mostly group 1s because they're very effective, use some group 2s, and maybe get a little more interested in some herbicides like the old Treflan and Edge that we've gone away from.
So what are we looking at right now as for spread? If we were to look at a map as to where our problem areas are, where are we seeing major problems?
Well, Group 1 resistant wild oat would be pretty well spread across Alberta. In fact, and random surveys suggested about 50% of our agricultural fields would have a Group 1 resistant wild oat. So they're not real patchy, whereas cleavers, it's more of a dark soil zone weed, black or thin black soil zone, so you won't get Group 2 resistant cleavers down in southern Alberta because there are no cleavers there. But so it just depends on where they are in the greatest abundance. And if you apply herbicides to great numbers of weeds, you get resistance.
So what options do you have if you've got them after the fact?
There are some things you can start to do. You can make sure that they don't spread further with good management. But after the fact, you try to use other herbicides that are still the weeds are still susceptible to. And you can also do non-herbicidal practices. You can do harvest weed seed control. We're starting to look at things other than just the Harrington seed destructor. We're looking at chaff, baling off the chaff, and or we're not burning chaff yet like they do in Australia, but that's very effective. And when you're in a desperate situation, it can work well too.
So what's it costing producers?
It's really hard to say because right now they manage resistance with other herbicides, and so sometimes that herbicide's a little more expensive, sometimes those herbicides are a little less effective. So the costs don't seem to be that great right now, and so that's why there's not that much action. But as they lose some of the major herbicides that are more effective and have to go to older ones or more expensive ones, then they'll start to see the costs that will enforce change.
So what can it cost producer from a yield perspective?
I don't think there is a real big cost from a yield perspective right now because they'll just use an alternative herbicide that works. But when they don't, and they don't get in there early enough, and they're trying an alternative herbicide and they haven't realized they've got resistance, you know, you can lose 20 or 30% of your yield just because of trying to apply herbicides too late.
So when you get something like this, and it's not necessarily causing big yield penalties, what's the danger there with producers?
Well, the danger is that we'll say, oh well, we're okay. By the time this is a big problem, we'll have developed a new herbicide mode of action to take care of this. But experience shows that there haven't been very many new herbicide mode of action. In fact, in the last 20 years, we haven't introduced a new major mode of action.
So it's a matter of just kind of creating stagnation, I guess.
Yeah, that's the problem. Without a real famine or anything, we're not forced to do anything.